Kiss Cruise on land, I don't think this is going to sell any more tickets. If anything, it's kind of confusing. Like Kiss Storms Vegas, it was pretty apparent what was going on. You go to this hotel, you're going to see Kiss events, Kiss Expo, they're going to do this Unmasked live show. Now, if I'm someone new hearing about this and I hear Kiss Cruise, I'd go, oh, it's a cruise. No, it's a cruise on land. Like, cruise pretty much implies, it absolutely implies you are on a cruise ship. I've never heard of a cruise being on land. And I don't think anyone who wasn't into this event initially would be like, oh, it's the cruise, but it's on land, I'm in.
Well, with this change of the weather, some people might have a little rock and roll pneumonia!
You wanted the best, you got the best from my home studio on Long Island, New York. Welcome to Ian Scotto Rocks. I am your host, Ian Scotto, and I feel like Ian Scotto Rocks, for a lot of people, has become your source for Kiss news. And to those people, I say thank you. It inspires a lot of this channel. You wanted the best. Do you guys like that song? You know, a lot of people, I think everybody loves the original. You wanted the best, you got the best. The hottest band in the land. I don't know how people feel about this song, though. It's always gotten like mixed reactions from people. But anyway, I have some Kiss news to bring to you. And that is that Kiss Storms Vegas has been rebranded. Now, the idea of Kiss Storms Vegas having some type of a transformation may not be all that surprising because, as you may have seen in recent weeks, Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons have done countless interviews. They've been all over the podcast scene, really. Paul Stanley, more recently, doing that 2-part interview with Billy Corgan that was really cool, and then also talking about his 5 favorite Kiss records. And he's been pretty vocal that Kiss Storms Vegas needed to undergo a little bit of a transformation, possibly in order to sell more tickets. I don't know. It could possibly be the result of Pop House buying the Kiss catalog, them being less involved. And Paul Stanley did say, yeah, we need to be more involved in these decisions. And I don't know if when Pop House bought the catalog, there may have been some stipulation that, hey, you guys have to have some type of regular events. And, you know, I think from what people saw, they were excited for Kiss Storms Vegas. But from what I've seen, like the higher tier packages were selling pretty well. And then the mid-tier and lower packages are not yet sold out. So maybe they needed to incentivize some members of the Kiss Army to fly out to Vegas. So without further ado, I'm going to show you what was announced today as I'm recording this video, and hopefully we get it up pretty shortly. Kiss Cruise landlocked in Vegas. Now, this is the exact same event, November 14th through the 16th in Virgin Hotels, Las Vegas. Now, here's the actual video that they put up. And the interesting thing is, I could be wrong in this. You guys are, many of you, and I say it lovingly, are bigger nerds than me when it comes to following every little detail of minutia of what Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley are up to. But as far as I know, this is the first video of these guys in the same room together since the last show. And here is what they had to say.
Kiss Cruise 12, landlocked in Vegas. That's right.
November 14 to 16.
Right. And the cool thing is, you don't need a ship.
All right. So my first observation, I will say, is that you see that whoever shot this video went over to wherever that is and shot with a high-resolution camera. But am I the only one who noticed the audio mix is quite horrendous? Like the audio of All Night is completely overpowering Paul Stanley to the point where you kind of have to really listen in to hear him. And I just thought to myself, man, like to go through all this, to get these guys in the same room and shoot this sort of short infomercial type thing, you couldn't have had a few lavaliers? I mean, shit, I don't have much of a setup here. I've got lavaliers back there. The DJI mics, which are absolutely great. Like, you could have put a little thought into getting the audio correctly, getting the audio properly. This is not a big expense. Maybe I'm just audiophile who notices this type of thing, but that bothered me a little bit. Now, the idea of rebranding it, Kiss Cruise on land, I don't think this is going to sell any more tickets. If anything, it's kind of confusing. Like Kiss Storm's Vegas, it was pretty apparent what was going on. You go to this hotel, you're going to see Kiss events, Kiss Expo, they're going to do this Unmasked live show. Now, if I'm someone new hearing about this and I hear Kiss Cruise, I'd go, oh, it's a cruise. No, it's a cruise on land. Like, cruise pretty much implies, it absolutely implies you are on a cruise ship. I've never heard of a cruise being on land. And I don't think anyone who wasn't into this event initially would be like, oh, it's the cruise, but it's on land, I'm in. And to me, it sounds like the exact same thing. Now, in terms of everything that's going to be there, I mean, look, the most notable thing is it says that this is going to be them with Tommy Thayer and special guests. And if you go on Kiss's Instagram or Facebook or anywhere, all the comments are like, where is Eric? Where's Eric Singer? This is really strange to have a Kiss show without Eric Singer, who, I could be wrong on this, I'm pretty sure I'm right, has been in the band longer than anyone besides Gene and Paul. And of the, I guess you would say, current lineup of the band that played the final show, is the more celebrated member than Tommy Thayer. And that is truly because of the fact that Eric Singer has played on albums that are beloved by the fans, and Tommy Thayer really hasn't. He's just played on these two recent albums, maybe some other Ghost work and stuff like that. But that's not really what's celebrated in the Kiss catalog the way that Revenge is. And the fans love Eric Singer, and to not have him there, it leaves a giant question mark of why isn't he there when you've got Bruce Kulick there. You know, Tommy Thayer is also a guy who's definitely dragged in some of the Kiss books. Really, I'm thinking of Peter Criss's book in particular. But a lot of the fans like him and celebrate him. Well, there's also the people, how are you going to put on Ace's makeup? Look, he has nothing to do with that. He got the gig of a lifetime being in that band, and I'm sure it's like, as a hired gun, hey, you want me to put the makeup on? No problem, Gene and Paul. But it's really strange to not hear Eric Singer being a part of a major Kiss event, and the first major Kiss event since the final show. Now let's get into everything else. You got Bruce Kulick. That's really cool. I'm pretty sure this was just added. Warren DeMartini and Stephen Pearcy of Rat performing the music of Rat. Now this is awesome. I'm a fan, of course, but I don't think many people are going to go solely for this. If they're already going, this is a cool incentive. But these guys are playing venues throughout America, doing select shows, but this is definitely not a one-off or anything. You've got Sebastian Bach. Very cool, but once again, you can see Sebastian Bach playing in a town near you, and not many people are going to fly all the way out to Vegas for this, pay the extravagant cost just to see Sebastian Bach. So it's cool, but this is nothing out of the ordinary. Quiet Riot, quite honestly, the same thing. Black and Blue, now if you were a huge fan of Black and Blue, this is major, but I don't know how many huge fans of Black and Blue there are out there. I mean, that's the reason Tommy Thayer joined Kiss, is because that was not a band that was filling large venues or anything. But to those select group who love Black and Blue, this is a major reason to go. Quarantine. Now, here's the funny thing. Quarantine is the band that consists of Chris Jericho and some other big musicians, of course, but playing and celebrating the 80s era of Kiss. If you've watched any of their performances, you know, Chris Jericho, he's Chris Jericho. He will always be known more as a wrestler than for his music. And the funny thing is, it's a good thing this is a Kiss cruise on land, because if it was a Kiss cruise on a ship, I'm not so sure Sebastian Bach and Chris Jericho wouldn't be at it, and probably more likely Chris Jericho throwing Sebastian Bach off the ship. Because you may remember in recent years when Sebastian Bach was taking shots at Chris Jericho, he said, he said, Chris Jericho is as much of a singer as I am a wrestler. And he said that he lip sings live, which I've heard he did in the past, not as much now. Clearly, if you watch those Quarantine shows, I mean, I don't think the guy is like a phenom of a singer, but he seems to be having fun. But you guys may remember this. I pulled it up for this reason. Do you guys remember a few years ago when Sebastian Bach was taking his shots, and Chris Jericho posted this in response to prove to Sebastian Bach that he had the chops.
I look and see it's not just me. So many of us have stood where I stand. We are the young, so raise your hand. They call us problem child. We spent our lives on trial. We walk an endless mile. We are the youth gone wild. We stand and we won't fall. We're one and one for all. The writing's on the wall. We are the youth gone wild. Living it wild. Yeah.
And that's him saying, because Sebastian Bach said that he was miming. So that was his way of showing I can do vocals live. Now, if that was supposed to impress me that you were an amazing singer, because I've seen Sebastian Bach more recently, and he kicks ass live and on album. That performance, I think of the words of Lars Ulrich's dad in Some Kind of Monster.
If you said, if you were our advisor, what would you say? Then I would say, delete that.
That's just me, though. Seems like a very cool guy, though. I'm sure I would have a blast with Chris Jericho talking 80s Kiss, but who's the better singer? I'm going with Sebastian Bach all day, every day. All right, Mr. Speed. They are a Kiss tribute band. Once again, I don't think people are flying out just to see a Kiss tribute band, but that's pretty cool. I'm sure it'll be fun. Kiss Nation, the Kiss Tribute Show, School of Rock, Craig Gass, great comedian, although he tends to do a lot of the same things again and again in his act, but he does do a great Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley imitation. DJ Noise, have no idea who that is. Q&A with Kiss, Doc McGee, Bob Ezrin, that is pretty cool. That's pretty cool to see Bob Ezrin do a Q&A panel. Lynn Goldsmith, Kiss Army founders, Bill Starkey, and Jay Evans. Now, if you're a Kiss nerd, that stuff is very appealing, I will say. Artist panels, the future of Kiss, Kiss karaoke, Kiss trivia, artist meet and greets, Kiss lookalike contest, photos with Kiss, memorabilia. Now, all of this sounds absolutely awesome as a Kiss fan, but it's a very, very hefty price tag. So just to remind you on this, the biggest packages, which I think are at the bottom, those are sold out, right? You got the ultimate experience package, which you go look into what that affords you, but we're talking $5,149 in total. And by the way, yeah, because it says $4,999 909 per person, but then it says with the fees and all that, $5,149 total. There are Kiss absolute fanatics who had to pay for this because that's already sold out. Then you got the next package. I'm not going to go into every single thing these include, but yeah, $2,829 total. Then you've got the Signature Plus, which is just about sold out, nearly $1,500. And then the cheapest seat in the house you got here, which is, you get to see Kiss Unmasked set. You don't get, the pictures and all the extras, but it's still, $1,300 basically. Because see, here's the thing. A lot of people living in Vegas are like, cool, I'll go see a Kiss show. No. You have to stay at the Virgin Hotel for that number of nights. And you have to pay all of this. This isn't just like a thing where you could choose, I'm just going to go to the convention. No, you have to pay for all of it. That is a very hefty price tag. Plus, you have to include the flight. Now, if this was happening in New York and I could just go to the convention for, $100, I'd be in. I don't know about you, but maybe it's I can't afford that. And I think sometimes Kiss struggles to think about what it means to be in this economy as an everyday American, and most people cannot afford that. Now, for a cruise, for many people, that's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. This is not a cruise. This is just staying at a hotel. And it's a cool hotel because I've actually stayed at the Virgin Hotel, which is newer for Vegas. I go to Vegas about once a year, usually for business, but I was there actually on my last trip where I went to Zion National Park. Absolutely amazing. And then went to Vegas with my dad. But yeah, I won't be attending it for those fees because it's a very hefty price tag. And I could understand why they're having trouble selling this thing out, probably. And I don't think changing the imaging from Kiss Storms Vegas to Kiss Cruise on Land is going to make any difference. But if you're willing to pay this, it seems like it's going to be a really cool, memorable event. And if you're going, I hope you enjoy it. I'm in no way hating. I'm just being realistic here. There are a lot of Kiss podcasts and Kiss YouTube content where all they do is praise Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. And then there's the people who call themselves fans, but all they seem to do is bash Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. I'm not in either camp. I am somewhere calmly in the middle, just enjoying Kiss. But to me, to not have Eric Singer is kind of weird and disrespectful. I can understand that. You know, they have Bruce Kulick there, and Bruce Kulick famously said, or, you know, memorably said, that Kisstory was not honored at that last show. And I understand that. And it's not being honored to not have Eric Singer there, but there may be a reason for it that we don't know of. That's the one thing that's kind of weird. But hey, they're on good terms with Bruce because Bruce is going to be there. Let me know in the comments if you plan on going to this. If you think it's just a money grab, hey, have at it. Let me know whatever you think in the comments. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like the video. Check out the merch store. We want to keep this channel growing, but I can't do it without your help. With that, if you want to watch more great Kiss content, click right here on the video next to my head, and more Kiss content to come. I'm working on a deep dive on the great Peter Criss. That'll be up very soon.